you can go to the next slide, Andy. In general, we're going to talk about the annual reviews quick. An annual review is a requirement when you have an advisory agreement with a client. Your base obligation is that you are meeting with your client yearly or you're offering a meeting, and that's important too. So like anything, we have to document what we've done in order to demonstrate that we've done it. So if you reach out to your client and offer a meeting and they decline it, that's perfectly fine to leave in the notes. If they don't answer the phone call and don't return it, that's perfectly fine to leave in the notes. You can just indicate that you left a message offering the annual meeting. Some advisors, in terms of a best practice scenario, if they are unable to reach the client, they will send a communication, just a quick letter letting your client know that you've completed their account review for the year and you'd like to discuss it with them, and offering a couple times for meetings as well. So that's another backup option on the event that your client, and some clients don't want to, and that's okay, they don't have to. We are the ones who just have to offer it. But you can send a note or a letter just offering the meeting again and letting them know that you are keeping an eye on their account and you are performing account monitoring services if that's part of your agreement with them. But when you do have that annual review, the things that you're going to want to make sure that you're either putting into your notes or that your CRM, whether you're using Redtail or Salesforce or Goldmine or whatever you're using, that you're capturing the date and the way that you conducted the review. So if it's July 1st and you did the review via Zoom call, great. And then the second piece, which we're going to get a lot more in depth with in terms of recommendations, but let's leave it here that you're going to indicate your rationale for making recommendations for change or not having any recommendations for the client. Some of those, when we're preparing for an annual review meeting, that's a bit of work on the front end. We're reviewing accounts, we're reviewing performance, we're going back and reviewing what we've talked about in the past. Do we need to bring that long-term care discussion back up? Was there any open items that the client said that they were going to be working on over the next year in terms of a debt pay down, similar? And make sure that those items make it onto the agenda for the annual review meeting. Another best practice is having an agenda that you share ahead of time with your client so that they can be as well prepared for the meeting as you are. So some of those baseline items are going to, of course, be account performance, but then some of those one-off items, such as how are they doing with other goals in their life? Did they buy the investment property yet? Did they? How's their mother doing? Whatever it may be from a personal standpoint, you can put that stuff on an agenda, which just further helps your clients be a part of the process, and it also helps create a paper trail for you in terms of what you're offering that client in terms of value and service for that advisory fee that we're getting paid in exchange. But the rationale for making or not making recommendations. So sometimes we don't know if there's going to be a recommendation until the client comes in for the meeting, because they may drop a bombshell on us, and that may change our analysis of what they should be doing. So those bombshells, those life events, those updates should all make their way into your notes as well. And that'll often indicate, you know, hey, I lost my job during COVID. We had to pull money out of savings. I don't have that $60,000 buffer in the credit union anymore. What should I be doing with my investments? So that's one of the other things that you'd be looking at when you're documenting your annual client reviews. And then, of course, any action steps that you're recommending for them. And this is going to become way important as we go into Reg BI. All right. On the next slide, Andy. And guess what, Andy? Our remote desktop just dropped off while I was in the middle of using it. So I apologize for a moment. I think the next slide was an example of client notes.
Yes.
Okay, see, I'm working on memory now until I can try to get back in. So I've read a lot of notes in my day, and I've written a lot of notes. And sadly, when they become important is when there's a customer complaint. And so what I put up on this next slide is an example of client notes that just wouldn't pass just wouldn't pass scrutiny. So what you'll notice is missing on the client notes is you're going to notice that there's not a lot of detail. We don't know what Monday we met on. We don't have any idea what their retirement funds are. What are we talking about when we say retirement funds? We note our client's eligible for pension, but we don't indicate any of the details that we learned about the pension or any questions we asked about it. And then going further on, we haven't documented any changes in their risk tolerance. And then out of nowhere, we're coming out with this Allianz VA. So as you can see from this, it's really disjointed, and there's no connectivity between the information that I got from the client and then the recommendation that I wrote down. So like, great, I wrote down a product, but a product-centric note-taking system is going to fail you because the complaint is always going to be client-centric. And so I would just really reiterate that as much as you can write down about your client in your client notes is what's going to save you in the event that something bad happens. And I'm going worst case scenario because that's how I cut my teeth in the industry, was worst case scenarios. But this comes up other times as well. Many of you know I was an advisor at a credit union, and I used the Redtail CRM, and part of that was dated notes, and you can download your notes into an Excel format out of Redtail. And you know, cover your ears, compliance folks, but I took my notes with me when I left that broker-dealer in the event that something came up and I needed to know what happened. Because my memory, I'm 38 years old, and my memory's going, and it has been. So I write things down, and I have to. And it has come up twice now in the last year and a half that I've needed those notes. And not for a customer complaint, but because my old OSJ office, someone passed away and we needed to know that I had talked to them about long-term care coverage. I had talked to them about their life insurance because the beneficiaries were asking questions. And so having as detailed and client-centric notes as possible is just really important for servicing and for complaint mitigation. So do you want to go to the next slide, Andy? The next slide is just an example of good notes. These notes are long, and I'm not going to read them, and I'm breaking every single PowerPoint rule that exists by even having them all on one slide. But you'll notice that they're robust. We talked about where the accounts are and what the current strategy is. We're talking about specific plans for Social Security. We're talking about strategies on particular accounts like the IRA. We talked about both spouses. And then the recommendations right at the end. We recommended a change in the allocation for the IRA, and that we're going to work on building up emergency savings. This is an example of the type of notes that you would want to see and that are going to protect you and are especially going to become valuable to you in a Reg BI world. You can go to the next slide, Andy. So the next slide here is Reg BI. I think we were getting like 3 emails a week for the last month from Securities America. I tried to keep on top of them for you, and I sent out a summary email last week. If for some reason you did not get that summary email, please do contact me, and I will forward it to you. But it's really just a high level. Here's the new forms. Here's the types of products that are going to require pre-approval that may not have before. Some of the major, what I would consider day-to-day impactful changes that have been made due to Reg BI. But I'm just going to do a quick summary of what it is. It's Regulation Best Interest, and it was passed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. It impacts both broker-dealers and their associated persons, so that's all of us, and then it also impacts registered investment advisory firms.
I believe we lost Jess there for just a minute. So let if you will hold on just a second, we're going to try to get her back. I know she was running into a few technical issues. All right, I just talked to Jess. She is dialing right back in. She got booted off of her server, so she should hear from her shortly.
All right, Andy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, perfect. That is lovely. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm going to just quick go over the 4 components of the regulation, and then a little interesting tidbit about being an advisor, and then we'll get really into the meat and potatoes of what this means for our day-to-day practice. So one of the first ones, and it's the most visible, is disclosure. So the disclosure obligation really takes the cake in terms of how far the SEC has gone in subscribing and prescribing what we are supposed to be doing and what we're supposed to be telling our clients. So for the RIA world, so for those of you that are primarily doing your business under the RIA, so that would be your accounts with Schwab, or it's going to be your accounts with TD, or for some of you using like Orion Portfolio Solutions, anything you're doing under our RIA is going to require the delivery of 2 documents, the first of which is the ADV Part 3. And that document is also known as the Client Relationship Summary, or Form CRS. So what we have going on with that is really plain language information, and that document is 2 pages long, and it does not require customer signature. I think we've got somebody on not mute. Okay. Like I said, that doesn't require customer signature, but we do need to deliver it to them. Even opened an account with the client. You could just be recommending that they take a certain investment strategy, that they roll over an ESOP plan that's terminating. So what's different about this regulation is that the disclosure is due at the time of recommendation, not at the time that somebody takes your advice. That's really important to remember, because this is the first disclosure that we're required to really provide to somebody that we've not even agreed to do business with. So that's Form CRS and the ADV Part 3. You're going to notice that SAI also has what's called a Form BD, broker-dealer, and they have their own CRS form, and they're going to try to build those into the account applications because that's the easiest way to ensure that delivery happens at least at account opening. But that's not sufficient for the recommendation. So it's really important as advisors that we know that these disclosures are due at time of recommendation. The other bigger umbrella and kind of paradigm shifting item that takes place with Reg BI is the idea of what a recommendation is. Now, the regulation didn't say these 4 things are recommendations, because that would have been easy for us. It just instead gives examples of times when a recommendation has been made. So let's say you're working with me and my husband, Justin, and we both have IRAs, and we sold a home and we're gonna have some money to sit with together, and it's non-qualified, and your recommendation is that we should open up a joint account. Well, congratulations. That joint account is a new account type that you've advised me to open, so that qualifies as a recommendation. So that would actually require you to re-deliver ADV Part 3, or the Client Relationship Summary, to an existing client. So it's not just a new investment or a new investment strategy. It's actually a new account type as well. Now, for those of you that are thinking all the ways this could go sideways, one of the ways is that you give somebody a recommendation to do something and then they go do it with the advisor down the street. Again, the disclosure requirement is at the time of recommendation. So even the people that don't end up doing the business with you still are required to be given the disclosures. So this one is huge, and it's difficult to wrap your brain around all the different times that it could be applicable. So I will tell you that the training that Securities America put together, and it should be available for all of you right now in the Learning Center, is actually quite robust, and it goes through lots of different examples to help get your mind in the idea of when and how to deliver the disclosure. So I would encourage all of you to not wait until August 31st to complete that training. It's really, really helpful, and I would complete it sooner. So that's a big piece, is the disclosures. Again, how do you prove somebody was given something? Make it a regular part of your practice and take notes. Some of the CRM providers, such as Redtail, are having a Reg BI date baked into the CRM so that you can actually just type in the date on each client record that indicates when you delivered the disclosure. The next obligation is a care obligation, and this is a no-brainer for those of us that have been working in the advisory space for any amount of time. This is what the SEC attempted to put in place of a fiduciary requirement for broker-dealers. So a little bit of leveling the playing field in terms of what the expectations are. About 2 weeks ago, FINRA had released amendments to the suitability rule to get it up to speed with Reg BI. So now individuals that are not registered to be investment advisors are under similar guidelines in terms of what type of care and information that they need to gather in order to provide a recommendation to a client. So the care obligation is best met through your notes. So again, what information did I gather about my client before I made a recommendation? Did I ask the right questions in terms of anticipating potential problems with the recommendation that I'm making? And then did I take costs into impact? So did I put the client's needs ahead of my own? And it's really important because the original language for Reg BI and old DOL language really was that it felt like the advisors couldn't even get paid. Like I was supposed to completely let go of all of my needs as an advisor and do what was best for the client, even if it ended up me working for free. What you'll notice about Reg BI is that you just have to demonstrate that you took care and that you looked at cost. It doesn't mean that you ended up recommending the lowest cost option. It just means that you took it into account when considering the options for your client. There are going to be lots of times when the cheapest option isn't the right option for your client. We just need to, again, document that. The conflict obligation is the third, and this one, Andy and I went back and forth when we were putting our Form CRS and ADV 3 together with our compliance consultants. Conflict in this sense really has to do with what might get in the way of your recommendation. So what other things do you have going on in your life that might be influencing your recommendation? There's some obvious ones. Does your spouse work for a publicly traded company? Does your spouse work for a municipality whose muni bonds that you're selling or recommending? Do you have inside information due to personal relationships that you have? Those are the easy ones. The other things that provide us conflict are other rules, licensing, and privileges that we have. So for example, you're going to notice when you read our ADV Part 3 that we disclose that each and every one of our advisors may also be registered representatives of a broker-dealer, and all of you are. We also did disclose that some or all of our advisors may also be licensed insurance agents. So even though we think, you know, I want to get as much on my shelf as I possibly can, I'm an independent advisor, I want to be able to offer a full plethora of products. Wouldn't it be a conflict if you could only offer mutual funds? I would think so. But the SEC does believe that any of the other roles that you have can provide conflict. So the fact that you can make a commission instead of an advisory fee is a conflict. The fact that you may get compensation for recommending an insurance product, they see that as conflict. So those are the types of conflicts that are disclosed on our firm level disclosures. That is not the end of your requirement to disclose conflict. We're going to talk about this a little bit later when we talk about our wealth management agreement and ways that you can let us know about conflicts that you have so that we can make sure that the right ones make it onto your Part 2B brochure. So we'll touch that again later. And then, of course, the compliance part, no regulation is complete without a requirement that we train everybody on what the rule is, train you annually on it, and make sure that our policies and procedures are up to date. So that one's really more about the firm. The last one is pretty important, not for most people on this call, because all of you have the licensing to be able to call yourself an advisor. But individuals that are only Series 6 or 7 licensed and don't have their uniform state exam or the combined exam, so you're 65 or you're 66, cannot call themselves an advisor anymore. So it can't be on your business card, can't be on your website. You cannot call yourself an advisor. So that's really important too. And having been in your shoes, if you see that, let me know. If you see somebody in the industry who is using the word advisor and they're not licensed to do so, let me know. I caught a guy working out of his garage in Sauk Rapids, Minnesota, that was not licensed with anybody at all. So let me know. I'll leave it there. You can go to the next slide, Andy. All right. So we went through most of this already. Reg BI, the disclosure is at the time of recommendation in all caps. Form CRS, ADV Part 3. We did have a question in from Whitney, and I'll just take it now since it's timely. She had asked, you have to give ADV 3 to non-advisory clients. You do need to give ADV Part 3 at the time of a recommendation, and so that's going to involve people who are not clients yet. So the answer is yes on that. If through the conversation you're leaning that your recommendation is going to be on the broker-dealer end, let's say that they're simply 22 years old and opening up a 529 account and your recommendation is where to open it, then you would give the Form BD and CRS for SAI, so for Securities America, because your recommendation has to do with the broker-dealer and not with the RA. So I hope that answers. Another question in from Daniel Hill, just to confirm, if you have your Series 7 and 66, yes, you can call yourself an advisor if you have your Series 66, or your 65, or if you've received a waiver from your state because you have another professional license like a CFP. All right, next slide, please, Andy. All right. Care obligation. The requirement that you're going to see in addition to documentation for Securities America is you're going to see a duty of care worksheet. I complained for I think 3 weeks in a row to Andy, and SAI did fix it. They have a singular page dedicated on their dashboard to Reg BI. I encourage you to go look at it. It's actually really well done now. It's just eoffice.saionline.com/Reg BI. So there's a duty of care worksheet. Do you want to go to the next page, Andy? Okay, this is the duty of care worksheet. This does not require client signature. This is for those of you, first of all, I'm going to say SAI does require this during certain transactions. I would recommend just making it a part of your practice. Because I anticipate that although Securities America is only asking for it at this point with existing clients, I anticipate that advisor group, from what I've seen so far, is going to extend this to more than just the existing clients. So I would have a stack of these ready, or I'm willing, this is fillable already. I would just advise using it when you're giving a recommendation or telling a client to open a new account and sticking it in the vault. I just think best practice wise, this is the best way for you to get into the habit of getting this worksheet done. And like I said, the scope of it is really small right now, but I think that's going to expand fairly quickly as we start going through our first exam cycles with FINRA and the SEC. Essentially, it asks you to disclose and discuss costs, what the cost may be to enter into a strategy. That includes maintenance fees. Sometimes we gloss past that when we're talking with clients about what to do with their funds. It can be a selling point if you are advising someone open an advisory account instead of a brokerage account at Pershing or NFS, but this is where we talk about that. What are the initial fees? What are the ongoing fees? Risk and reward with any investment, holding period, potential losses, potential gains. And then finally, how whatever you're recommending aligns with the client's needs or financial situation. A lot of you enter notes in on separate pieces of paper, or in new business solutions, you'll put notes in, and I often have to go back and forth and say, hey, can you answer this part? If you start using this duty of care worksheet, you will eliminate the need to go back and forth for robust client notes. So you may want to use this. You can even type the information you need to put into Redtail and copy and paste it over into this worksheet. But again, it doesn't need client signature. This is for us to demonstrate that we have fulfilled our duty of care under Reg BI. You can go to the next slide, Andy. We already talked about conflict. There's firm conflicts that are on the Form CRS and our ADV, and then there's going to be personal conflicts that you may have. Again, just reach out to me, and we will make sure that they are on your ADV Part 2 brochure. So ADV Part 2 is just the advisor-centric. This ADV Part 3 is really about the firm and the conflicts that we have. Go ahead, Andy. There are 3 SAI trainings that SAI is using to help fulfill the compliance obligation under Reg BI for their firm, and we are lucky enough to not have to make you duplicate for US Advisors Wealth Management. So we are piggybacking on those trainings, and they will also suffice for the requirement for US Advisors Wealth Management. There are 3 courses. The first one was 34 minutes, the second one was 20 minutes, and the third one, I don't remember. But you should be able to get them all done in an hour and a half, and they are content rich. So I would be taking some notes. There have also been updates to the compliance manual and the processes. Again, visit that Reg BI page at eOffice Online to get the major lowdowns on what's changing. Go ahead, Andy. All right. One of the big changes, and something that is still a pain point even before this regulation, was the EIRA form, which was the ERISA rollover form. One thing you need to know about Reg BI is that Reg BI doesn't care about ERISA. Reg BI cares about the client and the quality of the recommendations that we're giving. So in the past, the EIRA form was only required when there was a rollover from an ERISA covered plan. That requirement has changed. This form is required from any group plan rollover. Now there's going to be some, like for example, ESOP plans. There are no investment options. It's a singular stock from a single company. There are no expenses to report. It doesn't matter, it's still considered a group plan, and you will use the EIRA form for rollovers from any plan. There is, I just got a question from Walter. Yes, sir, TSP rollover. And the idea behind this is that we're in the business of making recommendations, and we get paid, hopefully, on the other end of us making a recommendation. The EIRA form was also updated, so it's not the same form that you're used to. It asks very different information.
than the one we had prior, including information that's going to be hard to find. One of the areas on it looks like a breakpoint schedule, and if you've ever shopped for an employer plan and went to the custodians and asked for their pricing schedule, you'll see that there's different pricing for plans based on the number of participants. That information is now required on the EIRA form. That's going to be difficult for some plans. Sometimes it's hard for us even to get information from the HR department. The idea behind requiring it is that how can we be sure we're making a recommendation that's in the best interest of our client when we don't fully understand what we're recommending they leave, which intellectually I agree with. In practice, how do we get the information we need on the disclosures? And then how do you even then go to the point where your client just wants to leave their old employer? Maybe there's bad blood, maybe they're going out of business. How do you get that information? So as I learn and as I find out information, I'll share it with you. But at this point in time, there is a new EIRA form. It's for all group plans. And then there is a pre-approval process. That always goes well and fun. I know I'm being like kind of sarcastic about it, and I shouldn't be. But there is a pre-approval process that requires a letter of instruction that you upload via NBS into New Business Solutions, where we're essentially telling the home office that on an existing account only, and for $100,000 or more only, that we would like to recommend a rollover, and then the home office will ask you for the EIRA form and the duty of care worksheet, and then they will either approve it or not. For those of you who are thinkers, you're going to be thinking, well, sometimes somebody comes to me and they've already requested the rollover. What do I do then, right? Just contact me, let me know. And these are some of the phone calls that I take on a regular basis, and some of you know that. Call me if something's weird. Call me if you think you're going to run up against a problem with one of the disclosure forms or one of the processes. It's my job to help act as a buffer and to ask the questions and ask the particular questions to the home office. So please do that. I do have an open question to them right now, to Laura in the advisory area, who's kind of heading this project up. What do we do when the client comes to us with a rollover check or is already requested? So I'll be sharing that feedback as I get it with our group. All right, you can move on, Andy. All right. So the new form, as I mentioned, is not the same. It is new. It's 6 pages long. If the client takes your recommendation, they'll sign it. If they don't take your recommendation, they will not sign it. And you will just indicate, client did not take my recommendation. There used to be an area on the old form that says, after a diligent effort to obtain the expenses, I could not. That's not allowed any longer. Again, the idea behind it is, how can you ensure best interest when you don't know the details on the prior plan? Again, if you run into this issue and you've genuinely tried, you've called the custodian, you've called the plan sponsor, aka the employer, the clients looked for that sign-up document they got 6 years ago and they can't find it, call me, let me know, and I'll try to push something through for you. Go ahead, Andy. Okay, so a couple other important points that are not disclosure forms or note related. Both Pershing and NFS have updated their fees. If I was a pundit, I would be guessing that we're going to start to see levelized fees more than we ever have before. But just in case you have a little package of fee schedules sitting in your office, toss them. There are new ones at Pershing and NFS. Some changes for those of you that do variable universal life business. Any additions or initial, will you go back? There you go, thanks, Andy. Over $7,000 have to be pre-approved. Compensation is getting capped on those products, and the independent marketing organizations are being limited. We've been informed at US Advisors Wealth Management that our US Advisors Network insurance agency is approved, and that there shouldn't be impact to our advisors outside of compensation being capped at the provider level. Similar VAs were already used to doing pre-approval on those, but you're going to expect to be asked for a duty of care worksheet, and then understand that advisor group and the subsidiary broker dealers have already been working with many of the providers to cap the compensation. This is part of the requirement for broker dealers to help mitigate conflicts of interest. So we can't always eliminate them, but we can mitigate them, and then we have to disclose them. So varied compensation on different variable products that are offering similar income benefits and similar death benefits, that's considered a conflict, because then there's an incentive for our advisors to recommend one product over the other when everything else is equal. So we should be expecting to see levelized comp across the insurance industry and across the other products that we sell in the mutual fund space as well. We are also seeing changes taking place to structured products and alternative investments. Those of you that are working in this space have already been receiving communications from the alternative investments product due diligence area at SAI. Just know that there's not going to be additional incentive on these products. They typically pay a higher commission than you'd see on like a Class A mutual fund, for example. We should be seeing those levelize over time. A-share compensation to the broker-dealer is being capped at 5%. So that $10,000 purchase into the American Growth Fund that used to pay 5 3/4, the most going to the broker-dealers, now 5. C-share comp has been capped at 1%, and 12B1s have also been capped. So you're going to see that industry-wide, and you're going to see it different caps for different share classes. You can move on, Andy. Okay. So we got another question in from Whitney. How are we going to find the average retirement plan cost chart on the EIRA? So this is where, this is where the rubber hits the road. You can call the custodian. As we all know, if the client's not on the phone with us, they're not going to tell us anything. We do know that. My advice would be to make that a part of your rollover process, is contacting the prior custodian with the client on the phone, because they don't know the right questions to ask, and we don't have the authority to get the information from the custodian without the client. If even after that the information cannot be located, let me know, and I'll push on the home office and see what we got to do. So most advisors are not going to have access to this information outside of directly contacting the custodian with the client on the line. For those of you that have large employers, so for example, I have St. Cloud Hospital, and a lot of my credit union members were employees of the hospital. I was able to obtain the plan documents from the large employer, and in there I could see the size of their plan. I had access to the investment booklet. So for the large ones, it might be worth it to, while you're on the phone, ask for a copy of the plan documents. The smaller ones are going to be extra work, and we still might not get where we want to be with it. But we do have to demonstrate attempts. And so I'm anticipating that Securities America will give guidance, FAQs through the summer as individual issues come up. And we may be able to use the client's own investment expenses instead of the information they're asking for on the EIRA, which is really plan level information. Because that's honestly, if you're in a plan with 25 people, it's kind of irrelevant what your breakpoints would be if your plan had 1,000. Doesn't matter. That's not the reality we're living in, and it should have no basis in the recommendation. But that's where we're at with it. And again, when you run into problems, come talk to me. Let me be your advocate. That's why I'm here. So I'm going to transition over to advisor-directed investment processes. One of the things that both Andy and I were concerned about in terms of ensuring that we are doing the best we can in terms of supervising our advisors and providing you the compliance backup that you need is we're in constant contact with LSA, and we understand their investment process, and we receive lots of communication from them regarding why they're making changes, what investments are on watch lists, everything you'd expect from a portfolio manager. However, there are lots of clients in our RIA that are in advisor-directed portfolios. So in that situation, the advisor has offered to and is getting paid to be a portfolio manager. And we are not currently receiving information from those advisors regarding when they're going to make a portfolio change, why they're making a portfolio change, what risk metrics they're using, what models they're offering, and what are those models made of. So regardless of whether a client has signed up with a professional portfolio manager or they have signed up for an advisor-directed portfolio, our obligation to them is the same. So this is still being developed, but we are working on requirements that the advisors will need to meet if you're doing advisor-directed portfolios. If you're not, shut your ears. If you are, know that over the months of July and August, Andy and I will be reaching out to you for just a better understanding of how you are running your portfolios, what you're offering, what risk management software you're using, and then we will be documenting that and making that part of our annual process with you so that we can demonstrate that your clients are receiving professional portfolio management advice and that we can present that to the SEC when it comes for our turn for Reg BI audit. There will be changes to our wealth management agreement with our advisors that will also capture this, and also just remind you about conflict disclosures to the RIA. Go ahead, Andy. All right, buddy, it's your turn.
Thanks, Jess. Appreciate you working through all those technical issues to get us all that. That's really the big portion of this meeting was going to be on the Reg BI stuff. So I'll take over from here, just trying to touch base on a few of the updates we have from US Advisors Wealth Management and go from there, and then we'll finish off talking with Nate briefly and any question and answers that we haven't gotten to. So looking at this slide, we're talking, I know Jess talked about it quite a bit, more specifically our US Advisors Wealth Management ADV3 or Form CRS. So this is a new form required. I followed up Jess's email last week with an email on what Jess and I and our compliance consultants had crafted for our form that needs to be delivered to all new and prospective clients starting yesterday, and then also needs to be delivered to existing clients by the end of the month. And so what this relationship, what this form is it's just a better understanding for the clients of the advisor relationship, more plain language for them to understand instead of pouring through our ADV firm-wide 2A document that has 35 pages. This is an easier form for them to understand. So like I mentioned, it needs to be delivered to all new and prospective clients starting as of yesterday. And we got you all that information, but feel free and reach out if you didn't get what you need or you need an update to that. And then we'll actually be taking care of your existing clients. We'll be mailing that out to them or emailing it out, as the majority of them are, to getting them that client relationship summary of the ADV3. So looking next, we just want to give you an update on some of our new and updated deliverables that we have at US Advisors Wealth Management. Some of these have been in place the second half of last year. Some of them have been updated, but just wanted to give a quick reminder. We do have the TD Ameritrade platform available. We made that available second half of last year. Just another option. We like Schwab as a custodian. A majority of our assets are at Schwab, but we do like this as an alternative, and we continue to look for options and what may enhance our advisor and client experience. Financial planning fees. We have made 2 enhancements last year with how you charge those. We can do a monthly ACH, or you can set it up as part of an advisory fee. Both these suggestions came from advisors looking to kind of enhance their practice, And that's something we went to the drawing table to see how can we implement these. So these are still available. We do have, you know, just another quick update to the financial planning agreement that makes it a little bit more flexible for advisors to utilize as well. Our stock portfolios we made available last year, 2 main stock portfolios right now that we utilize, core conservative model and a famous brands model. I think this is just another option for clients to look at, to utilize if they want to specifically hold brands they recognize in a stock model. That's a way to do that. So we have had a couple advisors who have utilized those. Continue to reach out to us with any questions on those and any way we can help clarify or get more information into your hands on those. Money Guide Pro updates, we've been a longtime partner with them. Tina and Philip do a great job getting information out to you all on that. I know there was a webinar with some of those updates and looking at some of the new enhancements that Money Guide Pro has. So take a look at those, get back to Tina and Philip with suggestions or ideas and what might work and what might not. That's why we have these, to try to make things as easy as possible for you as the advisors and the enhancements that we're trying to make for you. What we're going to be looking at to the end of the year. So we've been talking with a couple advisors as to new portfolios we might be able to add in addition to LSA. So LSA has been a longtime manager of ours that we utilize for our ETF, mutual fund, and socially responsible. But we want to look at, is there another manager that can come in, help fill some of that need that advisors are looking for? So we're talking to a couple advisors. Love to hear feedback from anybody else and specifics they're looking for. There are certain criteria we have to have in terms of the cost structure, in terms of how we can trade that model for our advisors, and kind of how it fits on the spectrum. But that's something that we want to take any of those suggestions, feedback, fill it in. We're looking to get something out by the end of the year. So something that we can release out to the advisors and say, this is another option of our managed portfolios that we'll trade on our end, but that can be available for you all so you can be out there reaching out to your clients with those as well. The last one on this slide, the toolboxes that we have. We've mentioned them a couple different times in this meeting. I know Philip talks about it a lot, Tina does as well. For the network, wealth management, and our insurance group, we have just a great one-stop shop for all the forms you need, advertising, compliance. A lot of that stuff is just right there for you to utilize. So please, if you don't know what we're talking about, reach out. We'll get it out to you. If you have any questions on it, let us know. But I think that's another great tool that you can utilize in your practice as well. So Jessica mentioned a couple different times our advisory agreement. So this is something you may remember when you join US Advisors Wealth Management, having you sign off on the agreement between the advisor and us at US Advisors Wealth Management. So we've updated this form to fit in with Reg BI. So the main area that we updated is really the conflicts of interest section. Jessica talked about our form CRS, or our ADV3 is really talking firm-wide and talking about the conflicts of interest we have, but not specific to you, the advisor. So that's what some of this is going to help identify and make sure we have your ADV2B as up to date as possible so you're in compliance across the board. So we're going to be emailing this out to you in the next couple of weeks. We are going to have a requirement all advisors do need to sign this and get it back to us if you're affiliated with US Advisors Wealth Management. And then we're going to tie this into the Reg BI requirements that are due at the end of August. So let us know if you have any questions. Just be looking for an email from us on that and more details there. Some of our updated and new forms that we have, I mentioned it briefly, our financial planning agreement form. We just updated a few of the sections to make it more flexible for the advisors, for you all to use. So we're going to be having the new version starting August 1st. We'll get that out to you so you can have it in plenty of time to start utilizing that when you're using your financial plans and charging for those financial plans. We have the advisory agreement we just talked about, so that will be coming out and you'll sign off on that. And then a big one, which we've mentioned a couple times, or I've mentioned to a couple advisors, but we are no longer at US Advisors Wealth Management requiring a separate monthly correspondence. So that's big because we had to have you do one at Securities America and US Advisors Wealth Management. Jess has done a great job in identifying where we can sync some of those forms together. This is one of those areas. You didn't get an email from me this morning on it. So we'll no longer be requiring the separate monthly correspondence, but you still have to submit the Securities America one. And then we talked about the ADV3 and CRS delivered to new and prospective clients starting yesterday and existing clients by the end of the month. A couple of quick reminders we like to hit on, making sure that you're using the most up-to-date IMA version. That's 8 of 2019. We're not updating that for this year, so you can continue using the one you have been. Making sure you send all a business through NBS, get it approved before sending off to Schwab or TD Ameritrade. All new accounts must have IMAs attached in NBS. These are all ones everyone's doing a really good job of, but we like to keep it going because we'll have a few filter through that don't quite have everything where it needs to be. A big one now is sending all trade requests and IMA updates to our Schwab at US Advisors Network email. That's one that Tina, myself, Carol are all on. We make sure that if you have a trade request come in, we can get it done in a timely manner so it's not missed if one of us happens to be out or you guys don't happen to notice that. So that's where we really want to emphasize that, as it's been practiced for a number of years. Returning all compliance forms in a timely manner, noting all household accounts on the IMA so we can get the client the best pricing there. Advisor-directed portfolios and using best share class has been key for a long time, but continues to be, especially with Reg BI. And then just noting, staying under our max allowable fee of 2%, we have the different tier levels depending on the asset size. Our advisors do a really good job of that. Just a nice reminder there. I'm going to go through this really quick because I don't want to keep anybody on the line here too long, but we just made a quick update to show you where our portfolio returns have been for our wealth management managed portfolios. Really what we talk about with our managed portfolios is how they perform in market declines, help protect some of the downside. And so on this chart, I just point out some of our most used portfolios compared to the S&P 500. And what I'll just highlight here briefly is moderate growth is our most heavily used portfolio. And if we compare that over time with the S&P 500, you look at the returns in February down 4%, which isn't great, but we compare it to down 8% for the S&P market overall. And then again in March, down 9 compared to down 12. We're having a difference of about 7 to 8% that we try to help protect on that downside to keep the swings as minimal as possible. So that's really what we're focusing on. We've had 2 portfolio updates from LSA in March and then again in June. Tina's done a great job getting those updated and traded. We continue to see those. We don't see anything on the horizon, but that's something that they're constantly monitoring where the market is, not making wholesale changes, but just making those tweaks and making it as efficient as possible. Quick reminder here, we put this on every compliance meeting, but the document aspect, and Jessica talked about it as well. Make sure you're answering those 3 questions. Why this client? Why the strategy? Why now? Take good notes, detailed explanation. Have an assistant or an associate if you're available, if you have that available to you in taking notes. Nate likes to always mention the palest ink is better than the strongest memory. I think that's so true. And then the duty of care worksheet that Jessica mentioned earlier is a great resource to use in this case as well. Quick slide showing the growth of US Advisors Wealth Management since about 2014. So we can see about 100 million at that point. We've grown all the way up to about 325 million as of the end of June, or start of June, and that's where it's hats off to all of you and really making advisory a focus of your practice and looking for what's in the best interest of your client, to know that this is really where the puck was moving back in 2014. And it really shines in times like this where volatility is up and down. You may not be able to meet with clients as much. The traditional commission side of the business isn't there. Advisory practice, you can just focus on your client and not have to worry about where that next sale or maybe commission might be coming from, and really kind of helps out over those time periods from a business standpoint. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over. I think I unmuted you, Nate, to give your quick update here towards the end of the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Andy, and Jess also. Hey, happy New Year to you, everyone. We've been through quite an interesting first half of the year, and I don't need to belabor any of the things that have gone on, because all you have to do is pick up any newspaper, and it's right smack in front of you. But A lot of companies have certainly had a hit. Fortunately, it looks like most of you are trending well, especially the ones that have really embraced the advisory business. As I've mentioned in the past, that when I was a commission broker, so to speak, it was like you wake up unemployed every day and wait for that next commission. But advisory, it's all about that annuity stream, helping your clients out with unbiased, not commission sensitive types of decisions. So we've seen where the advisory business has been very, very consistent and certainly ticking up. Commission business, surprisingly, isn't down as much as I thought it would be. So those of you who have had that fortunate situation where you still are able to write a bit of that business, hats off to you, because it means that you're seeing your clients, you're engaging with them. Philip's done a great job in coaching, and what we saw in the 08-09 situation was where advisors crawled under a rock, and that was the time when clients needed them the most. And there was a lot of client changing to other advisors. So kudos to you. Continue to stay in front of your clients, continue to communicate, and just bringing that into play with certainly death, disability, long-term care is in front of your clients, especially your elderly clients. This is a reminder to your young clients too, that COVID can happen or pandemics can happen, and they need to be adequately prepared, because you're seeing where some long-term care companies are really restricting the amount of groups that they're going to be covering or individuals. They're restricting the underwriting. We're seeing some of that on the life situation too. But now is the time to be in front of your clients and really talking to them about how they're prepared for protecting those that they have invited into their lives. Rod Crandall is a great resource. We have Andrew Casilius, and then George Steele as your both internal and external marketers, Rod being the Chief Integration Officer. So if you are not doing a lot on the insurance side, or just don't know how to get into that business, please search out Rod. Philip is always a wealth of knowledge for anything that you're doing from the planning perspective. So be sure to reach out to those folks, because we're here to help. And as you saw with Andy and Jess, we have a couple of great principles with Securities America integrating other broker-dealer firms from the advisor group merger into their back office. It does take some time. And when it takes time, there's delays. And so just be patient with them. But because of your choice with aligning with an OSJ, you really circumvent a lot of the pressures or problems that the advisors who have decided to go Securities America Direct have encountered. So I always want to thank you for doing business with us. Certainly it's a team effort, and we really try to listen to you. I think that you've seen that from what Andy pointed out, from some of the portfolios that we've come up with, the ease of doing business through ACH for your fees and so forth. So we do listen to you, and we are having a survey coming up. I'm not sure if this was mentioned or not, but if not, please fill that out, because the more of you that fill it out, the better we get an understanding of how we're doing as your teammate, how we're doing as far as executing your business and making sure that there's an ease of doing business. So I want to thank you for that. Obviously, you know that the advisor group purchased Ladenburg Thalmann. Some people saw it as a negative or an opportunity to maybe go somewhere else. We really didn't see that within our group. I think that we've seen enough changes during our advisor lifetime that now we know that change is part of the continuum that we walk along, and it's going to be here to stay. Change hopefully is for the good. I met with Jamie Price back in March and had some one-on-one time with him, and I really see where we have a good leader. Certainly Jim Magengas, a close friend of mine, is a great leader and on the Board of Governors, but I think that Jamie Price is also going to be helping us as a strong leader moving forward. We have the influence of large numbers. We have buying power, and I think that that will bode well for us in the future. So that's more or less what I would like to say. We're embarking on a new half year. We're embarking on a great weekend where we have independence from the great United States that we are. So let's celebrate that and certainly have a safe and wonderful time with your family, your friends, and we're here to help and make sure that we can do whatever we can to make your business successful and safe too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nate, for that. Just a couple closing slides for you all. We'll get you out of here real quick. Executive summary just touches base on what we covered, the advisory hot topics, Reg BI being a big portion of it, a couple of the updates with our advisor agreement, new deliverables, points of emphasis. And then finally here, just upcoming events, dates to keep in mind and keep on the calendar. Securities America's annual compliance requirement is due November 1st, which is separate from this meeting. Reg BI training, Jessica mentioned it, August 31st, that training is due. Money Guide Pro updates, I know Tina and Philip have been giving you all that information, so please follow up with that. Managed portfolios, we're going to be working on those. Our goal is to get something by the end of the year, so be on the lookout for that. Jessica reminded me today, primary November elections coming up and donations need pre-approval. Jessica, did you have something to add with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had all hoped for an hour away from politics, but too bad. Anytime you are going to give a donation to a PAC, a political party, a candidate, those do have to get pre-approved. That's just under the compliance questionnaires, which is the purple with white tab under Front Point. Pretty easy, but it gets a little tricky at the end. So if you are going to disclose something and you're comfortable, give me a call and I'll walk you through it to make sure it gets done and through the system appropriately. I donate a lot, like frequently, not a lot of money, but frequently, and I've gotten caught up a few times. So feel free to reach out to me if you are gonna need to go through a pre-approval process, and I will walk you through it. You do not need to disclose to me who you're donating to. We can pretend it's Mickey Mouse if you'd like, but I'm here to help you with that.
Perfect. Then the final two that we had on the slide, advisory agreement, we're going to coincide that with the deadline for Reg BI because that's really why we updated the form. And then Schwab's going to have a mid-year outlook call coming up here on the 14th. So thought that would be a great opportunity for advisors to hop on, listen to where they see things going in this global pandemic we're in, and even in the future past that at some point. So take a look at that, see if that makes sense and something you want to be on as well. With that, we had any questions that anybody has. I think we've kind of gone through most of them. I'm scanning through here, but anybody else, I'll give a couple, maybe 30 seconds here to type in any additional questions you have, but you certainly can let us know outside of this meeting, any questions that come up, anything we've had. Again, we recorded this meeting and we'll be emailing that out along with our PowerPoint slides so you can see all that, refresh yourself, and then reach out to any one of us with questions. So it doesn't look like we have any questions coming in, so I just want to thank everyone for being a part of the meeting, hopping on right away, working with us through our technical issues that we had, and just working with us in general at the OSJ. We really value all the advisors we have and we appreciate the support you place in us, and we'll continue to work with you and help out anybody the best way we can. Have a great 4th, and we'll be talking soon. Thank you.
Thank you.